This episode of Around the Grounds with Chocco is brought to you by Central Murray Live, 1332 3SH and 107.7 Mix FM. Welcome to Around the Grounds with Chocco, and geez, I'm excited to have a chat with this bloke. He is an absolute sensation. You might have heard him on the radio, you might have heard him on the sidelines, but you've definitely heard him around, and well, he is black and white through and through, and that is Paul Gatto Gadson. Gatto, thanks for joining Chocco Around the Grounds, mate.
G'day, Chocco. Thank you. And I just need to start. I've been goaded into this a little bit. You know, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not. I don't want to be seen as being a self-congratulator, mate, because I was never much good at footy. But the footy club asked me to do it, mate, and I'm really pleased that in a year where there's an absence of football, good on you for stepping up and doing a bit for the region. So on that basis, mate, lovely to be here.
Well, mate, I think you've been a bit modest. You've been an absolute terrific, and that's the whole point about this, is to have a bit of a chat about your footy career, mate. And you know, it was a wonderful career, but you're a fantastic stalwart of the club, mate, and it'll be great to hear from it. But, mate, you started as a 17-year-old, a 12-year-old playing under 17s. Tell us a bit about your first crack in the black and white.
Well, people sort of don't believe me, but not that they don't believe me, but my old man was pretty busy. He was a shearer come, hay contractor come, you know, doing a lot of jobs, and to get me to footy on a Saturday morning seemed too hard. Great bloke, I was Slatsy, and God rest his soul, but he just said, no, when you can play Colts, you can play footy. So I was actually captain of the Swanhill Tech Year 7 side, or whatever it is, Form 1, and I wasn't playing for anybody. I wasn't playing footy. So that was how it rolled. So I was lucky enough that our Colts were pretty lousy. So I managed to get a game when I was 12. And I think Billy Hewitt was coaching us back then, Rod and Wes and Mick's old man. Great old fella, Billy, great old boga personality. And so I reckon I stood on the wing for my first year and got about one kick a week because I was only little, and was loving every minute.
1980, mate, first senior game. Can you remember that game truly, mate? Who was it against? Where was it played, mate? What position did you play?
Well, I was on the bench, Jock, because I was 15. So I played Colts. Trevor Pumper was coaching us. Trevor's one of my heroes. Back then, we sort of had your heroes weren't so much. I think it's a funny thing. They weren't so much AFL blokes. Your heroes were your local blokes. It's Peter Filler and Kevin Pye and all those blokes that you grew up as a kid. You idolised them. And I was lucky enough. Trev gave me a game, and the seniors were battling a bit. And I sat on the bench when I was 15, and we played Warreneen, who in my life, they were the enemy. We hated them. They hated us. So never got on to the second half, and actually can't remember if I got a kick or not, to be honest. I just remember thinking it was good fun.
Now, let's talk about your 260 games roughly, mate, at Boga. What was it like back then around the club and the people that you played with along that journey?
Oh, mate, it's like every footy club. It's your life when you're a young man, and I was very connected to the place. My old man was a Boga bloke, and I was the same. And I was thinking about this, no one else can have a talk to you. I was thinking about this last night, Chocco. I'm thinking that, like, the amount of connectivity you have, you know, with your own club, and I thought it was the centre of the world. And when I started playing seniors at Boga, it was a very man-strong environment, which was probably that way in the 80s. And we were, the thing that I'm most fond of when I look back at my era, because we were never that successful. You know, we played in some losing prelim finals, never won a flag at my home club. But the sense of pride for me was when you have a beer with Dean Bennett or Greg Allen or these blokes that you're mates with now, that we were always regarded as an outfit that was hard to beat. And that's what I learned from it early. What I got taught was at our club, what we were proud of, there were some non-negotiables around effort. And we probably walked that line a bit. We were a bit nasty at times, but a lot of times we never had a great squad. So we always pride ourselves on being highly competitive. So that's what I take from it. Learn how to grow up and be a man, learn what it felt like to belong and be proud of your footy club, which I still have today.
Now let's take us back to those prelims, mate. I know you were part of one as a coach, and you were under Neville Brady as another. What was the feeling like to get so far but not get over that next hurdle to play in a grand final?
Oh, look, I think '87 when Neville was there, I was 22 odd, I suppose, and we got beaten by a goal by Tullibut. They went on to play in the grand final. I think I was too young to get it. I think I just thought we'd win a flag in the next 3 or 4 years. We had a pretty good side, and then people left and things changed and things happened. So at the time, that one didn't hurt as much. But the last one, when I was 32, I was coach. I was playing shit house. I was finished. I had a crook back, bad hammies. I don't know why I was still going around, to be honest. And we got beat by Kahuna out at night, and that one hurt. I remember going in afterwards and being a big sook and couldn't talk to players much because everyone was in tears and I was in tears, and because I knew it was my last game, and it wasn't so much for me. It was like I was upset for Glenn Murley and Rod Hewitt and Jock Coney, and because I sort of knew it was our last role a bit too. That collective group was just about the end. Roddy and some of those younger ones were going on, but it was the last crack for a lot of us. And to be honest, the only thing that keeps me sane is that I look back at both those sides, and neither of them are good enough to win a premiership. But that's not an excuse, but it's just a reality. That it's not like you missed out. I missed out on one at Birchip we should have won. We won one I didn't think we would. But at Boga, at my club, I don't think either time we were probably potentially, and we played finals other years. And we played finals when I was 17. We had Trevor Sutton playing at full forward, who's the greatest player I've ever seen in country footy. You know, kicked 250 goals. God forbid, who could do that? Kicked 250 goals for Janilico in the year before he came to Boga, and then kicked 130 odd for us. Was a freak. But so we played finals quite a bit. But I can never remember playing in a team at Boga where I look back and said we should have won it that year, because we were never quite there, you know. But we were always a competitive outfit.
Now, you mentioned Birchip. You had some success there as a player and a coach. What was the reason of making that move, knowing that you were so passionate about Boga? And what, you're only there for a short time, but why was that move made?
I want to coach. I coached Boga in 1991. I stepped down in 92 because I said it was our centenary year, and I said to the club that, you know, as a local, you can only coach for a couple of years. And I said, go and get a coach and bring someone in, and they got Rod Wardle. That didn't end up so great. Rod did his best. We went right. We played finals, but we possibly could have done better, maybe. But and then really, Chocco, I just wanted to coach. I wouldn't coach against Boga. Tori Ficarra will tell you a funny story. Came to my house one night and and this is true, this is like back in the old, it sounds like a mafia story, but dropped a great big bag of money on the table, and it was a lot of money, more than I was ever worth. But there's no way I'd ever coach against Boga. So I went to the club and said, I want to coach. I'll go away. As Greg Allen and blokes, he did the same. He was low through and through, but he went outside the league. You never coach against your own club. I went over there for 3 years, and I was lucky that we played in a couple of grand finals, won one, lost one, and then I came back home.
Now let's talk about 92. Probably in Mid-Murray history, it's probably one of the best teams to be represented at interleague level. He's won the premiership in the old, I think, Vic Health days, Gatto. But, mate, you look at some of the photos of those guys that played in that 92 team, mate. What was it like to play in a league back then? And tell us a bit about the blokes you played alongside with.
Well, get this, Choc. So I found this last night. Swanee Davies dropped this into me. This is actually the record. So if you know I'm interested in bugger, it's got the old player profiles in there, the whole bit. And I was looking through them, like, you know, Dean Bennett, Bernie Conlon, Chris Wall, who sadly passed, Johnny Craig, Alan Davies, you know, Mark O'Mara, Polly Bagg, Glenn Fitzpatrick, Vinnie Foote. And that was back when I started playing in league footy. It was like what everybody wanted to do, and they'd start with a squad of 60. And if you're lucky enough to get in that, we'd train for 4 weeks on a Sunday. They'd trim that to 30. And then back then we'd play your club footy. So you train Tuesday, Thursday, play club footy Saturday. You train every Wednesday, Sunday with your league team. And you play 3 or 4 in the league games in a campaign if you continue to win. But Now, I got great fond memories, mate. And at that period for me, Boga weren't going so great. So it was good for me. If I wasn't playing finals, I really enjoyed the experience of testing yourself against the good blokes. And I really enjoyed being around other blokes. And they were mostly better than me. Like I was playing on the ball for Boga, but I was never good enough to do that in the league side. I played in the back pocket and let Dean Bennett and Polly and all those blokes do their thing. But I learned a lot from that, particularly helped me with my coaching to watch blokes like Greg Allen and how they prepared, how they were as men. And no, mate, I loved it. It was a great privilege, and we had a real sweet spot there for 3 or 4 years where, they played in a couple of Italy grand finals and they had some really good away trips and made some really good mates, to be honest, which was great.
Now, your playing career ended, mate, but you still were heavily involved in the club, mate. You were on the committee. You've been involved in a number of roles, mate. I want to go back to 2003. You were chairman of selectors, head recruiter, and Boga had the best result they could get. They won the flag, mate. I can still remember the grand final. It was probably one of the most surreal experiences to see when that siren sound. Talk me through that year, mate, and talk me through what ended up being one of the greatest years Boga's had.
Can I ask you a question, Chop? Was it just me, my bias, or was 2003 the greatest crowd experience I've seen? Probably only rivaled by Balranald when they won their first one.
Look, and I say this with sincerity. It was probably one of the greatest things I've ever seen from a spectator. I still the surreal to when that final siren sound and to see the emotion on people's faces. You will never. I've never seen it before. And that's why I asked the question. You're involved. You're in the inner sanctum. How much was this? Like how much was it a relief or more a joy to that club? But not only the players, but everyone involved.
Yeah, and it was, mate. And I think that it was sort of heightened emotion because what people probably forget was the couple of years, Robbie Lee been with us for 3 years. And I got him over from Birchip. I coached him when we won flag 92 and he was a kid. He was 17 or 18, won a league medal. Excuse me, then he went to Adelaide. When we got him across to coach us, the 2 years before that, we'd got the last 3. So here we were again in that same year that we won it. We were third year in, prelim. Carane were 5 goals 8. We were 1 point at quarter time in the prelim. I thought, we're gone again. We're gone again. And I found a way to win. And grand final day, I think I probably derived personally, this is weird, more enjoyment out of that than I did out of coaching and playing in one at Birchip. Sorry to all the Birchip people are going to hate me. But what that did for our footy club, it had been 75 since we'd won one. We thought our opportunity had gone. We'd lost a couple of prelims before it in horrific circumstances the year before when Warren beat us. And they took the ball off us because we had a water boy inside 50. All this stuff was horrible. I reckon the year before we won us the flag, the year before, and I played in a losing grand final, the Lake Boga sheds out at Toowoomba after we just got beaten by Warren in a prelim, lost another one, and everyone thought that was it. We thought we'll never win a flag now. I don't reckon anyone spoke for 15 minutes, me included. It was like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It was horrendous. There was grown men crying all over the place.
So was that the infamous head count, mate, where the umpire stopped the game and counted the players on the ground?
Please brought that up, Chop. I'm not good with numbers, but no, that was at Lowbert. That wasn't in a final.
Oh, okay.
But at Lowbert one day, we put 19 blokes back, and I was head selector, so it was my fault. We put 19 blokes back on the ground, and they called for a count, and we got 0. We went from being 8 goals in front to 8 behind and still managed to win. But so, mate, 2003 was great. And my memories of that were that at the end when I had Rosie Taverner and, Carmel Wilson and these women down the boundary, while the game's still going, 10 minutes to go and we're still involved and watching it like we think we might lose and they're saying we've won, and they're crying and kissing us. And then at that point, only I realised that we'd actually won, that we were going to win. So I stood back, put the board down, and I just watched. And I reckon that last 10 minutes watching that whole outer side of the ground, people in black and white and singing and It was unbelievable. Hard to explain. Relieved and happy. Not for me. I've done my bit for the club, but so have thousands of others. But it was more the Rocky Tamarios and the Booker Emersons, and these blokes have been doing the hard yakka for 30 years, and they deserved one. The whole club deserved one. Thank Christ we did. We got one.
Would you say that was the momentum starter for the club going forward in terms of the belief? Because obviously they didn't get the success, but they were very competitive. There was an era there that they were really, really competitive. Was that the momentum? Because you look at that 2003 side, it wasn't built with superstars. You had a mix of locals and a really good talented players across the board. Was that the start of something that was going to keep this club going for years on end?
Well, we're like every successful side there's ever been. You get a glut of, and it only happens to you every couple of generations, but you get a generational bunch of players. And at that time we had Rick Pumper, and we had Wes Pye, Benny Collo, Benny Pumper, Ryan Heil. We had this bunch of core really good players, Brock Parsons. So you had that 8 locals that could all really play. And then we just went and got Robbie Lee. We went and got Quickie. We bought in Josh Bode. We went and supplemented, because you couldn't just buy a whole squad. You can now, but you couldn't back then. It's just not the way the landscape was. So we were lucky. That premiership was built off the back of locals and just bringing in half a dozen recruits. But no, mate, we enjoyed a really good 10-year period in the club. Been a bit of a battle since. Really pleased now for the club that I can see daylight the way out. I think the landscape's going to change a lot coming up soon, but I'm really bullish about Boga now being able to reposition themselves as a club. I think what I see the coterie committee and these guys that have come back in to help gives us all reason for hope. And we've got a lot of good kids. So, mate, look, 2003, good time for the club. And Robbie Lee was probably the best leader of men I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, he was a terrific coach, and he also went on to have some individual success as well. But, mate, the club means so much to you and your family, but everyone involved. You've had your family involved. You're a life member. Your old man's been a life member, mate. The club is, as I said, you spoke about the kids. It is on the way up, isn't it?
Oh, it is, mate. I think people underestimate how important good coaches are. Like, good coaches bring in good cultures, good framework. They create good habits. They drive behaviours, and I think we've probably battled with that. And it's been a money thing for us. Like, we haven't been able to afford to spend a lot on our coaching facility or capacity, and that's changed now through some really good work on outside the club. So I'm really bullish about. We've got the best group of kids now we've had in 20 years. But they've got to make the grade. These kids, I like to think they're going to be okay, but they've got to make it. And hopefully the capacity now for these coaches to bring a couple in. So no, mate, I'm bullish about where we're headed. I think as a club, like when you go to Boga even last year, it's funny. Like, there's still a lot of people there. Thursday night, we've got 90 kids training on the ground. There's nothing wrong with the place other than the top bit, and the top bit hasn't been healthy because we haven't had the financial backing to go and fix it, which we now have. And so now we're back in the ball game. So it'll take us a little while to rebuild, and we're not going to rebuild on money alone, because that's not how we are as a club. It's not what we stand for, not what we want to be. But we'll spend a bit more than we normally have, and we'll give those kids some help.
Well, Gatto, been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, mate. But we've got great people like yourself, and you mentioned a wealth of other players and people at the club that are doing fantastic things. Boga is in great hands, and I'm sure that fingers crossed, we may see a repeat of 2003 coming up very soon. But Gatto, thanks for joining us, mate. Absolute pleasure. And mate, thank you for everything you do for the region. It's been absolutely brilliant to have a chat today.
Thanks, mate. Happy to help out. You're a good lad. Thanks for what you're doing too. Good on you.